Good evening. Good evening. I'm back. So you all are well. And it's been a month since I've been here for you, particularly for Let's Chat. I took the month off on last month, but I'm sure you have come across plenty of wonderful opportunities to. There's plenty of people doing these types of videos. I'm not saying they're me in any way, or I'm not them, but there's plenty out there. I got on it actually a minute or so early because I want to post this article here. I'm just trying to pull this up. We'll see if my technology wants to work with me. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Who knows? You know. Again, pray you all are well. For those who may be new, my name is Gabe Matthews, Gabriel, but most people call me Gabe. What's my credentials? This is my page. That's my credentials. No, but that said, it is my technical. Victory in Christ is a ministry. It's a online-based ministry at this point, largely. That's not what I want. Sorry about that. Here we go. These Facebook came up fairly quickly. I want to give you a chance to kind of glance at this article. I'm going to make a direct reference. I'm actually going to literally read from it. My only disclaimer tonight is nothing. This is a subject for some, and if I'm just being honest, in particular for women, that gets very, 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 very touchy and uncomfortable because I get it. You so desperately want soul ties and soul mates to be real. Now, there are men who hold to some of this stuff as well. I'm not, unaware of that fact, but there is a reality, and we'll cover that tonight. But I want to get this article up because I don't want to be the only one saying what I'm going to say. I want others to echo these sentiments as well as myself so that you understand there's nothing personal. I've had many, many, many conversations. I've been single over 8 years now as of May. So a long, 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 long time, relatively speaking. And so I have some knowledge on some things from experience and conversations and research and things of this nature. But I posted that article because I want to give you a chance while I'm kind of talking a little bit. It's 9, so we're officially started, but give you a chance to kind of brief over it. Very, very, even some points that I'm going to highlight that I never really thought about myself. So I want to bring those things to bear. Now, the ultimate conversation is about soulmate versus a life mate, and I'll explain life mate a little later on. But just to draw a contrast. That being said, glad to be back. Enjoyed my time away. For those of you connected to me on Facebook, you know I spent some time in California. It's already been 2 weeks, amazingly enough, ago that I was there. So time has passed, as it always does. But I'm glad to be home. It was nice to see family and friends, but also nice to be home. Got a bit of a car issue. Actually, to keep me in prayers there. I put a post up just about an hour ago. Got some very serious things that are being addressed, and we are trusting that they will be repaired here shortly. If you're driving cars, these things you got a car, a house, you got to spend some money. So that's the nature of the thing. All right, let's get into this. So, like I said, I want to actually read through this article. I downloaded it just in case my internet decides to, matter of fact, I'm not going to even fuss with that. I actually downloaded the article so I could read it that way and not run into all of this dragging I get. The article is there for those on Facebook. If you'd like to click it, it won't pop up that way on the YouTube. So my apologies. It won't quite come up that way. But I'm going to pull it up in a PDF form, and I want to really just read through. I really do. So you can hear from someone else. Okay. So I want to start with, and I think we have to, with soul tie. I want to start with soul tie. And you can even look this stuff up yourself. Just type in, where does the concept, because soul tie is a concept for those who don't realize it. Soul tie is not a truth. It's a concept. It's not a fact. It's a concept. It's an idea that was presented. I won't get into some of the history years ago. And of course, it took like wildfire. Again, I'm not going to get into the history, but I do want to present some of this information to you. Share this out. Sometimes I forget to say this. Like, click, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Victory in Christ. I got well over 200, I think almost 300 videos of content. So a lot of content you will be watching. Talking about what is that? Binge watching for a while. A lot of content, whole series. If you want more Bible study stuff, I got tons of Bible study stuff up there. At some point, we will get back into that as well. We're just trusting the Lord to work things out in that way. Okay, I clicked on this article. Why is it taking so long? Come on. So yeah, like, click, subscribe, please share. Get this in front of as many people as possible. If nothing else, this will start the dialogue on your channel. Send people over to chit chat with me. This is called Let's Chat. Now, when this article comes up at some point before the end of time, I literally want to read from it because I think it was so well written and so poignant that I don't know why it's not opening. That's disturbing to my soul. Let me see if I can get it to work on the actual website. And something told me to open the thing up. But I did not listen. Again, hope you guys are doing well. I appreciate you joining me on my new night. We're obviously on Wednesdays and not Thursdays. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, I have soon to be high schooler who decided he wanted to play basketball this year, or actually the end of last year, coming into this year. And so after a brief conversation, he said, Dad, yes, I want you to train me. So I am training him, and Thursday evenings is one of his nights he attends basketball camp. So it's just too much to go to basketball camp, engage him, and then do work, do notes, and then try to do this and get done at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And all that was just going to be a little too much. Looks like the article finally came up. It's still reading. No, okay. All right, here we go. So if you want to open up and follow along, you can, or you can just listen. What should Christians know about soul ties? And even though it says Christians, if you're not a Christian, I think you might want to hang in there. Soul ties, a belief that a person is mystically tied to another, soul ties, got it, are a popular and trending concept today. Soul ties are not a biblical concept, which is why believers and others should avoid ministries or rituals associated with supposed bonds. I love it because they didn't waste no time. Miss Sophia Bricker came right out the box. And this article was written May 4th, 2022. If you want to look it up, yourself. This is written in Christianity Today. The idea of having a soul tie with someone else is common in popular culture. While the concept originates, listen, the concept originates from New Age teaching. Let me do that one again. While the concept originates from New Age teaching. Some Christians also teach that soul ties can occur among people. Full stop. Let's chat. What do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Did she get that wrong? Now, some of you said New Age teaching. I've never heard of that. And let me just say this. I strongly encourage modern day Christians. I strongly encourage modern day Christians who are in, and she's going to list that off in a minute, in ministries called deliverance ministries. If your ministry title, or I don't like to name a church, but if the ministry title where you attend is Victories, something Spirit, so-and-so, Faith, has faith in the title, anything like that, even ministries, I strongly encourage, if you guys like to dance, run, speak in tongues, anything like that, the operation of the gifts, if you are attending a ministry with a lot of singing, if you are attending a ministry with a lot of, you find yourself crying a lot, I'm not being mean, but you find yourself, or people crying a lot. Crying is not bad. Dancing is not bad. Singing is not bad. I sing. I play music. I grew up in a ministry very similar to what I'm describing. If you are in a Pentecostal charismatic ministry, I strongly encourage you to look up New Age teaching. So not just soul ties and soulmates, New Age teaching. You will be disturbed by how much we have taken from New Age teaching. And New Age is not biblical in any way, shape, or form. Oh, I came out the box. You know how I do it. I don't waste time. I ain't gonna waste your time. I'm coming out the box. So let me just say right up front, if you are in any of these types, now Baptists, but even some of the Baptist ministries have taken on some of those practices. If you go to a place where they call people up to the altar and you bow at the altar, there is no such thing as an altar in a place of, yes, I said it. Why do they call it the altar gate? So you can go up and be sacrificed? No. But they call it an altar for a reason. That's all in that New Age. Some of that's in the New Age, some of it's a little bit different. So let me do this. And I got into it, but now let me back up for a second. So let's define our terms. They do it in the article, but I want to do it separate from them. The word soul, soulmate, soul music, soul time. This word soul. What does the word soul mean? I'm glad you asked. And of course, my computer wants to go slow. Like it's working extra hard doing something I wanted to do that's not a computer. Now, there's a couple of definitions there, but the one that fits our conversation for today, we're getting out of the Oxford Languages Dictionary, is the spiritual or immaterial part of a human being, an animal regarded as immortal. The spiritual or immaterial part of a human being or animal regarded as immortal. Let me do it one more time, just because I think we need to hear it. The spiritual or immaterial part of a human being, full stop. The spiritual or immaterial part of the human being. So let me ask a simple question, my friends, love you, my friends. Let me ask a simple question. How in the world can a person tie their spiritual, immaterial being to another person's spiritual, immaterial, immortal being? Let's check. Anybody? So the word soul, another word for soul, is spirit. And in the Bible, for my Christian friends, it's used, good evening to you, it's used interchangeably. I know there are some places where you see like soul and spirit, and it seems like it's itemizing them as two different things. But ultimately, the word soul or spirit is dealing with your immaterial self. I'm already deep into the discussion. Now let me say this, and I'm not going to make any excuses. You can hate me, but my question would be, why do you hate me? Or a better question is, why do you so desperately want a soul mate and a soul tie to be a real thing? Oh, I got more to read, but I just want to come out the box. I don't even want to waste a lot of your time because you might not stay with me the whole hour. So let me ask again, why do we so desperately want soul anything, even soul music, to be a thing? The word soul means the spiritual or immaterial part of a human being. We ain't got to go any further. Spiritual and immaterial. Let me ask my question again. How do you get your immaterial part of you to connect to somebody else's immaterial part? For all the preachers, unfortunately, I've heard preachers. I can go to YouTube right now and I can pull up some of the famous, big, huge ministries, and they talk about soul ties. And some of you going to the very types of ministries that I just described 5 minutes ago, you have had to go up for prayer because you got tied to Big Bubba Gump. And you have to go up and they have to pop you in your head and you fall out, bam, and hit the ground and hope they catch you. Because you think that's gonna disconnect you from Big Bubba Gump. You think that if somebody pours a bunch of oil and mess up your dress and mess up your suit, that's gonna disconnect your spirit from their spirit. Because you actually think, yeah, I said spirit, because you actually think that you saw them and it was love at first sight, and then they turned out to be bums, they turned out to be crooks, they turned out to be liars and cheaters, and now you got to go to your pastor who preached that garbage to you in the first place to try to get the pastor to do an exorcism and get that person's spirit out of your spirit. And ain't nobody going to talk to me. Nobody's going to explain to me how in the world you can connect your soul to somebody else's soul. You know why you're not going to say anything? Not because you don't really want to say something, because you really don't have an explanation. You know why you don't have an explanation? Because there is no such thing. You just ain't had nobody be honest with you because they didn't want you to dislike them. Now, if anybody's watched my broadcast, you know that don't bother me. The idea of a soul tie with someone else is common in popular culture. While the idea originates in New Age teaching, some Christians also teach, people that's in my position, teach that soul ties can occur among people. Before I examine if soul ties are a biblical concept, I think it's helpful to first talk about what this term means. Now here is Sophia's definition. Then we can look more closely at the biblical evidence. What are soul ties? Page 2. The concept of soul ties are created by human beings, or by humans, and refers to a bond between two people. Some proponents, in other words, people who advocate for it, of this concept, teach that both parties in the bond experience an intertwining of their souls. So you're like, yeah, Gabe, yeah, wait a minute. Others believe that soul ties refer to a strong connection based on physical, I gotta read it, and emotional, here's the word, New Age, energy. It disturbs me to my core when I hear Christians using words like energy. You don't even realize what you're speaking. There's a reason why the word energy, even in English translations, is not used. Why don't we say atmospheres? Why don't we say energies? Because that's new age teaching. Oh, I know you're getting a whole lot more than you anticipated, but let Gabe do his job. Like me or dislike me, let me do my job. We don't use words like atmosphere and energies because that's new age. And so we don't use those terms in the way that the pop culture and the way that mystical religions, in the way that those entities, those organizations, those businesses use them because of the meaning that's implied. Let me read what she said again. Others believe that soul ties refer to a strong connection based on physical and emotional energy. We don't do that as Christians. We don't do it because we are messing around, let me get real plain, with doctrines of demons. That's what Paul called it. Remember, soul tie is a concept. So when we as Christians adopt the idea of soul tie, and it's not, oh, I'm gonna give the game away in the beginning. It's not biblical. I'm gonna get to the scriptures that y'all use. It's not biblical. And because it's not biblical, but you keep using it, and I'm gonna tell you why it's dangerous for you to use it in a minute, because trust me, it's dangerous. You are messing around with doctrines of demons, and you think, here's the danger. I told you I'm gonna get to it. You think it's God. You think it's God. This so-called bond between two people's souls, or remember, spirits, often occurs, watch this, you're not gonna like it, through sexual acts. People often use the concept to promote the idea of finding the person, watch this, who completes them. Oh, she went deep on me. She went deep on me. Let me keep going. Although soul ties often refer to a deeper connection through sexual relations, and let's be grown about this, we know this to be true, other ties can also be formed between two friends or between people who know each other from past lives. So now we're bringing in Hindu and Buddhist teaching. Gabe, really? Yeah. Incarnation, or excuse me, reincarnation. Let me give you the other word that I don't like for Christians to use, karma, which, by the way, I've already talked about this. I should do a whole broadcast on karma. The reason why Christians should not use the word karma is for the same reason, because karma is dealing with Hinduism, or is it Buddhism? And karma is dealing with the fact that the life you live now is a life based on a previous life you lived. She gets into that, and I'm going to read it for you. Let's keep going. Christians who promote the idea of soul ties misuse Bible verses to support their views. Also, these Christians why did she do that? I don't know. She just said these Christians also commonly work with deliverance ministries where they help people break, quote unquote, she literally put in quotes, soul ties as a part of their work against evil spirits. They believe that demons can travel to and from people who are connected by soul ties. And if you heard what she said in the previous paragraph, they travel through sex. I have actually had this conversation more than once in my 8 years of plus years of being single. Hey, Gabe, can you be connected to somebody if you have sex with them? A soul tie, 1 Corinthians chapter 6. No, no, and no. People who follow New Age, so this is for my unbeliever friends too, people who follow New Age and wicked beliefs, stay with me now, do not think that all soul ties are wrong. To them, soul ties are common connections we make with others, but they can become dangerous, okay? At that point, they would recommend breaking a soul tie using a spell or ritual. See, in church, we go to the preacher and we ask him to anoint us with oil or her to anoint us with oil. And then everybody comes around and girl, come in. I feel a soul tie. That man you messing with, God said. You're not supposed to be tied to him. And come on, get my prayer warriors. There's another stupid concept that ain't biblical either. Get my prayer warriors. There's no such thing. Every single believer in that concept or under that idea is supposed to be a prayer warrior. And when you pray, you're not warring, you're talking to God. I did a whole series on that. That's on my YouTube channel. Please look it up when I talk about prayer. And at no point does the Bible ever associate prayer with war. Never. Prayer is never biblically associated with war. You pray before you go to war, but you don't pray as an act of war. You don't worship as an act. That's a whole other subject. My ADD kicking in, my bad. So at this point, they would recommend breaking the soul tie by using a spell or a ritual. So to my unbelieving friends who believe in soul ties and soulmates, you got to get a ritual spell. You got to go burn some incense. You got to do some meditation, which is what she gets into. Typically, these rituals involve meditation or calling on angels, clearly not from a biblical standpoint, through tarot cards and pendants. Is marriage the same as a soul tie? Now we're coming to some soulmate stuff. Christians who support the idea of soul ties teach that the Bible mentions this mystical or spiritual, that's the word I use, she used mystical, attachment. However, the verses they use display poor understanding of God's word, not my word, hers. One of the main verses Christians and non-Christians use, believe it or not, non-Christians use these verses, is Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, that says, that is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one soul? No. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24 clearly says, and they become one flesh. I'll give you some time. Go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read it. They become one flesh. Oh, absolutely. Forever love. We're going to get into some of that in a minute. But they become one flesh. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24 clearly says, they become one flesh. One flesh. And by the way, for those who've ever been married and are married now, are you literally now one flesh? Do you walk around in one body? No. Where do you think I'm going now? So that means one flesh, first of all, is not talking about one spirit or one soul. Clearly, but one flesh is not talking about the two become one being. It didn't say that. They become one flesh in terms of a union. They are seen as one unified. Thank you, Lord. This is good already. I don't know what y'all waiting on. I'm already deep. They are seen as one unit. One unit. That's Mr. and Mrs. blah, blah, blah. They are seen as one unit, not one person, one unit. They are two people in one human unity, one human, one human, one human, one human. Did I say it enough? Let me say it again. One human. They are not one in one spirit bond. They are not in one soul bond. They are in one human bond. It's a human bond. Marriage is only for human beings. Cats don't get married. Dogs don't get married. Lions don't get married. Human beings are the only creature, because we are Christians, we believe in God, the only creature created, and marriage is required. I'm ahead of myself. Hold on. It is important to note that this verse says nothing about a husband and wife having a soul tie. It's that scripture emphasizes how marriage unites one union, a man and a woman, where they become one flesh physically. And the results of the unity may very well be, not in every case, children. God does denounce sexual acts outside of marriage. We don't need to get into that because that's not really where I want to go with it. Drop down. Furthermore, when people become one flesh, they are not combining their souls. A person does not find their better half. Stop that stuff. Stop it. Stop. What is this idea of my better half? Human beings are not half beings. You never were. You never will be a half being. You may not be all that you desire to be. But human beings are not half beings. They're not half beings. That's why you're not finding someone who completes you. You're not finding someone who completes you as if you are a half being. Now, I understand many years ago when Mr. T.D. Jakes or Bishop T.D. Jakes talked about a whole man and a whole woman or a half man and a half woman. I got it. I understood it. And to some extent, I agreed with his analogy. But it falls apart at the notion of somebody being half, as if you know what your full self is. And if there's some such thing as being your full self, I think you are who you are. Whether you are fully mature or not, that doesn't make you half a person because you're not fully mature. My son is not half a person because he's not fully mature. He's 13. He's 13. So I don't look at my son as a half being because he's not as mature as I am at 49. Well, I'm not as mature as my father is at 72. Does that make me somehow 3/4 a person and my father a full person? See, we got to stop this nonsense. Words matter. What they mean matters. Okay, why are you doing this? Why do I do any of these broadcasts? Because the words we use matter. They convey what we think and what we understand or what we don't understand. I'm looking to find my better half. That's funny sometimes, I guess, but honestly, I don't like it. I never referred to a woman I was married to as my better half or worse half or what is that? What is that? Is that some attempt to be humble? Is that really what you're trying to be? You think by calling yourself a half person, you're being humble? Are you passing the buck of responsibility to be your full self? That's what you're doing. You're passing the responsibility. So if I call her my better half, then I'm okay with being half? Really? You're okay with being half? Half of what? Half of yourself? What does that mean? Now, I hope you've noticed I've been going for 30 minutes or a little over 30 minutes. And notice how many other concepts are a part of this. I want you to take a moment and think about what I'm saying. Think about how many concepts that I've had to address and hopefully fix for some of you, because it all plays into this soulmate nonsense. Yeah, I said it. There are so many reasons why soul ties and soulmates are bad, because it brings so many other bad concepts into play that we need to start getting honest with ourselves, especially if we're Christian. Finding a marriage partner is not about being complete. If a person knows Christ, then they are already complete. Oh my goodness. Let me read that one again. If a person knows Christ, the Bible says we are complete in him. That's Colossians chapter 2, verse 10. I would look it up, but laptop's running a little slow, so I won't even dare. If a person knows Christ, then they are already complete in him. In contrast to enduring connection of soul ties, which supposedly spans time and other lives, marriage is not a permanent. Marriage is not a permanent. Marriage is not permanent. Marriage is not a permanent institution since it ends with death. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 39. I've taught on this. Find it on my YouTube channel. I've literally taught through 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Marriage is not permanent. When your husband or wife dies, you're done. You're done. You're done. No one will marry or engage in sexual acts in eternity. Matthew chapter 22, verse 30. Let me say that again. No one will marry or engage in sexual acts in eternity. Matthew chapter 22, verse 30. Furthermore, a person could not be bound to another person from a past life because people are destined to die once and after that to face judgment. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27. Therefore, the biblical view of marriage is not equivalent to a soul mate or tie. Now she goes on into soul friendship, and I don't need to get into that. Feel free to read those pages if you like. Okay, so soulmate. I think I've already answered this matter, but clearly a soulmate, a spiritual mate, is not a real thing. Now, where she goes with this, and this is magnificent. I close it because I don't want to get into it. But what she really reveals, and I know this, I've read through scripture a few times, is that we actually have a spiritual mate, if you will. Some of you already know what I'm going to say now that you heard me say it. I know you're feeling a little uncomfortable, but I hope you get my point. We do have a soul mate. We have a spiritual mate. And that's not another person, that's the Lord. Glory to God. The Bible said, don't make me preach now, that Jesus, matter of fact, let me be specific, in John chapter 14, John quotes Jesus directly, and he says, and the Spirit or the Comforter, another Comforter, is going to come. That's chapter 15, I believe, 15 or 16. And make our abode. In other words, God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit live on the inside. If you really want a soulmate, become a believer. I can preach that. As a matter of fact, let me write that down in my mind. I'm going to preach that. I'm going to preach a true soulmate. Because our soulmate for the Christian is Jesus. And the Bible is clear. The one we are in relationship with, that we are tied to spiritually, is Jesus. As a matter of fact, she didn't put this in the article, but Romans chapter 8, I believe verse 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. His Spirit bears witness with our spirit, that we are the sons and daughters of God. You want to know who your soulmate is, brothers and sisters in Christ? It is Christ. And if you are in a soulmate relationship with a person, you are cheating on God. As a matter of fact, you want to know why I say the word mate? Because guess what the Bible says? That the body of Christ is the bride of Christ. That he's married, even in Jeremiah, I believe it says, he's married to the backslider. Oh, I could preach this. I'm going to preach this. And if I got any of my preacher friends watching, don't steal my message. And if you steal it, give me credit. If you really want to preach soulmate, tell people to fall in love with Jesus. Matter of fact, the song says, falling in love with Jesus. Falling in love with Jesus. Falling in love with Jesus was the best thing I've ever done. And anybody, whether you are single or married, man or woman can have that relationship with Jesus. Falling in love with Jesus, falling in love with Jesus, falling in love with Jesus was the best thing I've ever done. Because in his arms I feel protected. In his arms, never disrespected. In his arms, I feel protected. He's the best thing I've ever done. If you want a soulmate, fall in love with Jesus. If you want a soulmate, become a believer in Jesus Christ, and you will get a true soulmate, because God is spirit, and they that worship him, which is a relational thing, must worship him in spirit and truth. I'm almost done. Because the other side is versus a life mate. But I had to make sure and spend most of the time on correcting our thinking about this soulmate thing. See, you didn't even realize when you kept telling me, Gabe, I don't care what you say, God will give you the desires of your heart, and I want a soulmate. No, marriage is a physical thing. Now, there's a lot I could say here. Let me be quick. Marriage is a physical thing between physical beings. Notice dogs and cats and lions and whales don't get married, but they procreate just like we do. But they don't get married. Oh, don't tell me about your dogs living together and they don't own each other and you try to treat them like they're human beings. They're not married. I don't care if you put a tuxedo on the male and a wedding dress on the female and do a ceremony. They're not married. Marriage is temporary. The moment you die, your marriage, I don't care if you were married for 75 years, your marriage is over. And by the way, let me go ahead and really make you mad. When you die, and if you're both Christians, you're not going to walk around heaven looking for your spouse that died. And they're not going to be waiting at the pearly gates on you. There's nothing biblical about that. So, Gabe, why do we come up with that? Because we like to romanticize. And then some of us like to mystify. I was going to say that the idea of soulmate sounds like a forever love. Exactly. Misunderstood. Exactly. By the way, that's a Facebook comment for those on YouTube. We have mystified and we have romanticized relationships away from reasoning. We have gone so far out away from a practical application and a look at marriage, no disrespect to dating, and a look at relationships between men and women. You know me. Hey, if you in a woman, man, that's your thing. That's not how I get down. If you don't want to deal with it, go on about your business. Love you. Love you. I prefer you stick around. But if you just choose to go, I get it. Now, if you report me, that's just shameful. Because then you're taking away my freedom of speech. Why would you do that? Because you don't like what I'm saying? You can disagree with me, but why would you report me because I'm saying something you don't like? That's just hateful. I'm not hateful. Marriage is between a man and a woman. I'm a Christian, period. I don't care what the United States says. I don't care what United Methodists say. I don't care what anybody says. Marriage is an institution set up by God between a man and a woman. I'm going to do a whole series on the pride ideology. Catch me in a couple of weeks. Understand that because we've romanticized marriage, so to the point, marriage is about love. Love. I'm not saying that you don't want to have love in your relationships, in your marriage, but marriage is not fully and completely about love. If you read the Bible, it does say husbands love your wife, but originally in Genesis chapter deuce, which I already read, and these two become one flesh, which is about birthing children. Marriage, before the fall of man, you didn't even have to say words like love each other. because love would have been already understood. You didn't have to romanticize it because they just were two people who were interacting with each other. But the moment, and I said this earlier, now let me finish it. The moment we eat the tree and sin comes into play, now we got to have emotional conversations. Now we got to talk about respect. Now we got to talk about compassion. Now we got to talk about love, because divorce, because abuse. And we have to speak about those things that help us not be dismissive of each other. We now have to talk about rules and regulations, because Adam and Eve chose to sin. And because they chose to sin, and death passed to all of us, according to Romans chapter 5, verse 12, 13, and 14. And because of them, now I got to hear about love. And I got to be taught how to be respectful. And I got to be taught how to speak a certain way, because I don't do it naturally. I'm born a sinner that needs to be saved. Falling in love with Jesus. Falling in love with Jesus. I had to fall in love with Jesus to really learn how to treat some people with respect. Falling in love. I'm not saying that unbelievers don't treat people with respect, but the fact is the ability to even do it comes from Jesus. Falling in love with Jesus was the best thing I've ever done. It is God who establishes the parameters of regard and respect in any relationship. It is God who establishes the standards of objective standards that tell me how to treat you and you how to treat me. It's God. It's God. It's God. So when you understand that, whether you are a Christian or not, I don't care if you don't like it, whether you are a Christian or not, the idea of morality comes from God. Period. Period. It doesn't come from science. It doesn't come from biology. No, it comes from God. It doesn't even come from your parents, because your parents had to get it from their parents and their parents' parents and parents' parents, all the way back to the original parents, which is Adam and Eve, who screwed up, which is why we have divorces. I've been divorced multiple times, which is why people cheat on each other, which is why they lie to each other, which is why you don't have a soul mate, suggesting some deeper love. You know what you really have? You have emotion. That's what you have. What you're really feeling is powerful emotion. I've said it before. We don't really understand how powerful our human emotions are. They were given to us by God to connect us. It's not your soul, it's your emotion. It's my emotion that connects me and disconnects me. When I become desensitized to how you feel, we are now disconnected. I don't care if we're married. If I don't care how you feel, we are married on paper. But if I don't care how you feel, we're not in the kind of marriage you're talking about. I don't care if we're brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, children and parents. If we don't have compassion, if we don't have respect, if we don't have honor, we're not really engaging in relationships the way the Bible calls for us to do it. If we lack humility, if we are not meek, what you're really talking about is not a soul mate. You're talking about an emotional mate. That's what you're really talking about. But you don't like that because you know how frivolous that is. You don't want to hear me say that because you know that there's no depth to our emotions. The fact is that they can change like the wind. The fact is they can change. So then, Gabe, what about the other part? You said you're almost done. So then I said a soulmate, which obviously is not a thing, except between us and God, with a life mate. Now, I have to say this stuff because if I don't, somebody gonna think I'm a matchmaker. I am not, nor will I ever be, nor have I ever been a matchmaker. I'm a truth teller. I'm not a matchmaker. I can give you some insights that I get, that I have, but I am not a matchmaker. I do occasionally, not often, have somebody tell me about somebody they're dating. And if they have, usually they have some concerns. They don't usually say it if they think everything is good. But if something seems to be a little off, they will text me, they'll call me, send me a DM on Messenger, and then, run down the situation as much as they want to, and then ask me what I think. I don't have a problem with that. I have done that several times over the years, but I am not a matchmaker. Ultimately, it's up to you whether you stay in a relationship or get out, whether you get into the relationship in the first place. It's up to you. If I see red flags, I'll tell you. That's it. A soulmate, which is not a thing, versus a life mate. Now, if what I'm saying is consistent, then clearly a life mate, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to be a soulmate. A life mate, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to be a connection made strictly on deep emotion. Oh, by all means, feel all the emotional stuff you feel. I get it. But a life mate is not, is something deeper. First of all, the word life. Life. So clearly I'm talking about being in a relationship with someone that spans a lifetime. I'm not talking about a momentary mate. Whole nother broadcast. And I suspect a whole lot more people would be chiming in on that one. I'm talking about a person with whom you have a genuine connection, stay with me, that spans a lifetime. Let me work it out. Stay with me, let me work. So a life mate is a person with whom you have a genuine connection that can include emotion, but not exclusively, that lasts your lifetime. This could be a friendship connection. This could be a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, hopefully husband and wife connection. This could be siblings. These are mates. Mates don't necessarily mean marriage, even though that's how we've been using it. But no, these are friends. These are, you could be roommates. I don't know. A mate, a pal, a friend, a husband, a wife. Okay. It's just the word mate denotes relationship. A life relationship. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Hopefully you get that. So here, I'm not trying to be a matchmaker, but let me give you a few things that I think even the Bible speaks to. Let's go man and woman, okay, just for the sake of it. So one of the things that you really want to consider, ladies and gentlemen, is someone who you connect with, listen, philosophically. What's your life philosophy? Yes, you don't have to agree on everything, but it's opposites attract. Oh, that's a cute statement. That's cute. It really is. But let's be real. I like pink, you like blue. Okay, that's not really opposites, but that's cute. But when it comes to your life philosophy, which I get the feeling most people have not really stopped and considered, including Christians. Just the stuff I see on your Facebook pages, the stuff I see on your Instagram, walls or whatever they call it. I'm not on Twitter, Snapchat. The stuff I see suggests to me you really haven't played out or thought about your life philosophies. As a matter of fact, for most people I talk to, you don't even think about it until somebody like me says it. For example, those of you who have children, even if your children are grown, what's your philosophy on having children? raising children and dealing with grown children. Do you know? And if you want to get into a relationship, have you really spent time by yourself thinking about what your philosophy is on, if you got grown children and grandchildren, on dealing with your children? For example, do you believe you help your children no matter what? Stay with me. I'm going to show you why what I'm saying is so important. So if you, and since I'm a male, if there's a lady listening to me or watching this back later who believes they're your children, your flesh and blood, you help them no matter what. You let them live with you. You let them drive your car. You let them get money out of your bank account. Those your babies. You don't let your children live on the streets. You don't let them go to jail. And if they go to jail, you bail them out. You spend, there's no amount of money you won't spend. Guess what? You and I, we can't get married. That doesn't fit my life philosophy. I'll tell my son to his face. Here's how I was raised. You make your bed hard, get you a pillow and some blankets and slide right up in there. Now, that doesn't mean that I have not received help from my parents in my life. I have. But make no mistake, I'm not living off my parents in any way, shape, or form. My sister lives at home and she's not living off them. She's a working musician and singer. And there's a benefit to her being at home with our aging parents. She's a benefit in the house. You know what I'm talking about. You know you got that lazy son, that good for nothing daughter. Yeah, I said it. And so if you espouse a life philosophy, life mate, a life philosophy that says no matter how lazy, no matter how good for nothing, they own drugs, they drinking, they doing whatever they want to do. They bringing men and women all up in your house, having relations, and they're not even married, and you ain't even in a relationship. You don't even have relations in your house, and they getting more sex than you get. Yeah, I said it. Clutch your pearls if you want to. I'm sorry, you and I, we don't work. See, that's a life philosophy that I can't get with. Well, Gabe, your son is young. Wait. I was a stepdad to 5. All of them are grown. And the youngest just turned 21. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. And you best believe I'm raising my son right now to honor this philosophy. He can come to me for help, but I am not going to help him to the point of enabling his misbehavior. I am not going to do it. Not going to do it. And so I have met, I'm not obviously calling anybody's name, and I'm not, again, I live with my parents more than once. I'm not talking about don't let them come in, because I also don't espouse a philosophy that says never help your children at all. I just got through saying that. Now that's just one example. That's one. What is your philosophy on money? That's a big one. Most of you don't really know. As a single person, oh, you spend like you spend. But if you want to get married and you want a life mate, not a soulmate, a life mate, you got to figure out what your philosophy is on money. I am an advocate of saving money. However, I am not a penny pincher. By no means. I do not have a problem with going to a nice restaurant, with going to the movies, with spending some money. I'm not in a relationship, but if I was, I would have no problem whatsoever with spending some money on my boo thing. Yeah, I said it. I said it. On my sugar dumpling. On my Rice Krispie. I wouldn't have a problem whatsoever. On my chocolate drop. I'm not saying she got to be a sister, but you know, I still might call her that anyway. I don't have a problem whatsoever. I've done it, and I will do it. Get into a relationship. So I'm not tight with money. I'm not a tightwad. I do believe you have to be responsible. I believe in budgeting. So a life mate for me has got to agree with budgeting. And she better not be stingy, and she better not be a tightwad. She better not be scared, because God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. We will help others. We will do for others. And despite my economic situation, I do. So I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And so if I get married again and I want a life mate till the day I die, she's got to have a philosophy that's somewhere near mine. I don't want to argue over this stuff. I'm not going to. I'm too old for that. See, some of you got into relationships, and let's just be honest, they lied to you because they were trying to get to you. And so they told you whatever they thought you wanted to hear. And it wasn't a true expression of the very philosophies of their life. So let me give some advice on how to deal with that kind of situation. First of all, you're not going to always know. However, there are a few things that you can do. I'm not a matchmaker, but there are a few things, and I'm going to be done, that you can do to flush this out a little bit. Ask questions. You ever gave their lies? Stay with me. Ask questions and pay attention to actions. Ask questions, get answers, and then watch behavior. Ask questions, get the answers, and then watch the behavior. See, you're so desiring a soulmate, you so desire a person to be in your life that you don't want to ask too many questions because you don't want to scare them off. No, I didn't say play 20 questions, but ask those pertinent philosophy questions about money, about children and grandchildren, about work and retirement, about where they want to live, what do they aspire, what goals they have. How do they see their aging parents? That's a big one. That's a big one. My mother took care of my grandmother. And my father's philosophy on family fit with my mother's philosophy on family and enabled my mother to take care of her mother. Do you understand? They've been married for 50 plus years. See, my brother be 52. They've been married, what, 53? I think 53, 54, somewhere in there. You got to have philosophy if you want a life mate. Attraction comes and sometimes goes. Feelings change. But you've got to, and even your philosophy can change, but usually when your ideas, philosophies, right, about life change, life. I'm not just talking about your philosophy about whether you like a Mustang or you want a Charger. Who cares? But whether or not you want to live in an apartment as opposed to a house can become very, very divisive and serious in a relationship. Trust. There are some people who so desperately do not want to live in an apartment. I would never marry them. Granted, I live in a house, but I've also lived in an apartment. And if I ran into a financial situation where an apartment was more feasible financially, I'm gonna live in an apartment. Period. I don't have this notion that I gotta buy a house, and if I buy an American dream, that's not me. And everybody who comes at me with that nonsense, shoot them down. I shoot them down. I'm not convinced that I gotta own a house to meet out the American dream. I'm just not. Will I own a house one day? Probably. But do I have to? No. Nope. 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 And I got a lot of real estate friends on Facebook. And I hope y'all hear, every last one of y'all hear me. I don't have to own a house to be perfectly happy and satisfied. I've lived in some fairly nice apartments in my life. I really have. Enjoyed it. Only thing I don't like is upstairs. But otherwise, I'm good. So for a life mate, you're talking about making connections that are meaningful, not just emotional, not just sexual. Let's just be grown for a second. Not just sexual, not just emotional, which sometimes run together, which is a bad combination, but that are meaningful. And if you want to get to something meaningful, you got to get to philosophy. You really do. You got to unearth their thinking. And you got to be transparent about how you think. And when you see them going, yes, me too. Yes, me too. I agree with that. I agree with that. Ask for evidence. Don't be ashamed. Don't be bashful. Ask for evidence. Ask for them to give you life experiences that are consistent with their philosophies. Ask them when they adopted those philosophies. How far back did they see those philosophies modeled when they were children? When do they learn those things? Who do they learn them from? I'm just throwing out some questions for you. See, I can say my dad, my mama. See, I can track some of my thinking back to my upbringing. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Some of my life philosophies come through my own experiences. Some of it, probably most of it, comes through my relationship with the Lord and reading the Bible and studying the Bible, which is why I do broadcasts like this so that people can hear these things so that they too can develop these philosophies. I'm done. I'm done. You want a life mate. Stop that soulmate nonsense. You want a life mate. If you are a Christian, you already have a soulmate. His name is Jesus. So what you really want is a life mate. Let me say it again. You want a life mate. You want that person with whom you can be connected for the rest of your life. And by the way, for my widows, that is a something. I have no idea what I just did there. That is something you can experience more than once. Hear me, hear me. You can experience that more than once. You can marry, your spouse die, and you can find that kind of, see, notice I'm not saying love. You can find that kind of connection again. You can. And I know people who have, some way later in life. You can't. I'm not saying you have to. If you choose to stay single, bless your heart. If you choose to get married, bless your heart. But you can find that kind of connection. Now, what if you've never known that connection? Gabe, I've never known that kind of, or I thought I had it and then I realized I didn't. Well, let me say this. Marriage, no disrespect to dating and living together. I'm definitely not cool with the living together piece, but whatever. Marriage is work. Marriage is work. I don't understand why we don't get that. So you definitely want to have somebody with whom you share a philosophy. Be not unequally yoked, right? He's not talking about marriage, but if we want to use it in respects to marriage, what the context tells us is, again, it's not actually talking about marriage when he says it, but anyway, it's talking about working, notice, with unbelievers. How in the world are you going to work, and marriage is work, with somebody who doesn't even believe in your God? Now, look, if you are married and then you come to faith in God, Paul goes on to say in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, stay married. If it's favorable, in other words, they're not trying to stop you in your faith in God and loving God, and they're cool with you being a Christian as long as, it doesn't bother them, stay married. Who knows? They might come to faith. But if you are now single and you would like to get into a marriage with a life mate, by all means, seek to understand. Don't just go there, Christian, and then go to church with me on Sunday, so therefore we're good. No. One of these weeks, be like, honey, I'm not really feeling up to it this week. And see how quick well, I'll stay home with you. No, I'm good. Feel free to go without me. If they never go without you, come on. You know what I'm going to say? If that person never goes without you, they won't even drive near the place. They won't even drive up on the parking lot unless you're with them. That whole church thing is you. Leave them alone. Well, okay, they don't know anybody. Get over it. Get to know somebody. What's your problem? Get connected. Get to know the pastors. Get to know the elders. Get to know the deacons. Get to know the ushers. What's your problem? If they never go without you and they have no dedication to going, they don't read their Bibles without you, they don't pray without you, you never catch them praying, you never catch them praising God, you never catch them worshiping the Lord, you never catch them looking at Christian broadcasting, they never, all the music they always play is carnal and secular all the time. They never listen to messages. They never read a devotional. They don't do nothing. Leave them alone unless that's you. If that's you, y'all match made on earth. As all matches, by the way, are. There's no match made in heaven except with us and God. There's no match. As a matter of fact, we're not even a match because we're not equal to him in any way. There's no match made in heaven. That's a match made on earth. But if that person does not hold to nothing, principle, study, nothing, and they don't need you to motivate them to do it, and you really are about your faith in God, talking to my Christian brothers and sisters, I'm just suggesting leave them alone, because you're heading down a path. And I did this. I ain't got time. I'm over my time now. I did it. My second wife had nothing to do with God, but she put on a show. Oh boy, did she put on a show. I ain't gonna get into it. She's passed on now a few years ago, but she put on a show, ladies and gentlemen. She was deep in it. And I hope she came to a genuine faith in God, but when we were married, she put on a show. And as soon as she had me locked down, she had that fish hook in my nose and all those little phrases we use. Trust me, I see your true colors shining through. Her true colors came, and I mean, bam, right in my face. Right in my face. So I know what I speak. I know from experience. And that was the worst marriage I had in all three. The worst. Period. And I would say it with her watching me. It was. As a matter of fact, the year before she passed away, she actually basically called me hitting on me. I'm just telling the truth. She called me trying to see are you still in California? No, I had already moved back. I said, no, I moved back. Oh, okay. Trying to see. And I didn't say this to her, but not even if. She ended up passing a year later. But anyway, so life mate, soulmate, there's no such thing as a soulmate. If you want a life mate, you got to really start thinking about what will connect you. What will truly connect you? Just emotions, just sex, money, status? What are you wanting to be connected on? You both come from the same place. grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools. Okay, I don't know how much you can build off that, but maybe it's a start. All right, I'm done. We'll see you next week. We're back, folks. Like, click, subscribe, share. Get this to as many people as you can.